Hello, everyone. Steve Parr here, Gwinnett Metro Baptist Network, Director of Missions, Executive Director, Association of Missionary Strategists, whatever term you want to use. You can just say, hey, you, I'll answer. But anyway, so honored to serve you. And I want to give you a recap of our annual meeting that we had on Thursday, the 22nd. Now, you may have been there, but likely you were not. But I did want to give you a summary of the meeting, but most importantly, to give you the Executive Director's report, primarily where I'm going to discuss with you briefly the 5 major issues that I see that we need to get a handle on in order to reach this community, in order to move forward. So I hope this will help you and encourage you as I've got about 8 months on the job right now to see what our greatest needs are. So thank you for letting me share. So real quickly, I'll summarize the meeting as far as what you would have missed. You know, because of COVID, we did a Zoom meeting only, and it was pretty much a business session. We got it done in just over an hour. However, glad about that. Unfortunately, we're not able to spend as much time in inspiration and preaching like we might ordinarily have, but I did get to spend about 15 minutes towards the end sharing my heart about some things that I do want to share with you as a part of this webinar experience. So I'm just recording this on Zoom, just real simple. And so I want to say thank you if you're watching this and taking time. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your gifts to this ministry. I want you to know that I am serving you. And when you don't even know it, I'm out there, like I was today, with a pastor at lunchtime, pouring into him on your behalf. And I'm able to do that because of your gifts, in addition to the other things that we'll be talking about. Now, in our meeting, business-wise, there were 3 major or main areas: revision of bylaws, election of officers, and approving the 2021 budget. So let me speak about each of those just very briefly. We did a revision to our bylaws, and most of you, you know, that's too deep in the weeds, you don't care. But if you do care, I'd be happy to send you a copy of those revised bylaws. But really, we were able to tighten some things up, given the direction, the vision for where we're moving to make things run smoother. And I shared that those bylaws do 2 things for me. It gives me the freedom to day by day do work on your behalf, but also draw some boundaries for me as I serve on your behalf. And a couple of examples of things that we worked on. One was the call of the executive director. We just saw some flaws last time, some things, contradictions, things that could be improved upon. And so we've smoothed those out. Hope it's a long time from now, but when that time comes, we'll get a very clear process for the call of an executive director. We also flipped that around, said, God forbid we have a bad situation, and not with me, but with somebody in the future, and things go south and you need to release a director. How would that work? So we clarified that. Broadly, our network, our association is based like this. As pastor, you are on our executive board automatically, and that board meets twice a year, once in the spring and in the fall at our annual meeting. So you are on that board. And if your church does $1 or more, you can place an additional person on that board. And you will name that person in February in the coming year. And the terms will really run from March 1 to March 1. But in addition, if your church gives $1,200 or more a year, you can have 3 more board members. So up to 5 per church. You do have to name those. But what it says is the more you're engaged, the more you give, the more of a say that you get. And the reason we did that, it's just not fair for a church that doesn't give, they're not engaged. You know, it's like the business meeting where you have a controversy and people show up just from nowhere to weigh in on it. Well, that's not fair in your church. Well, it's not fair here either. Now, we don't anticipate any controversial issue or anything, but, you know, in the event that happened, we want to make sure those who are strongest engaged have the strongest voice when it comes to those things. So we know several other things, but that's just an example. So we have the executive board, but out of this board, we also elect, and we did that, an administrative leadership team, and they come to not only support me and to be an ambassador on my behalf, our behalf as a network, but also that's who I'm accountable to. They meet every other month, and so they're the team that watch out to my ministry week in and week out, month in and month out, because again, I'm here working for you out in the field. So I want you to know there's men and women who I'm accountable to on your behalf. Got an excellent administrative leadership team. They will also function as our budget team, keeping an eye, auditing our finances regularly so that your resources are being well spent and used properly. So they're the auditing team, but they also help prepare a budget for each year. And once they prepare that budget, then I know how to expend resources. And as part of our bylaws, by the way, we just made it clear that I cannot expend resources beyond what is provided for within the framework of our budget unless it's approved by you, our executive board. So executive board, all pastors, an administrative leadership team, and then finally there's an executive director, that's me, and I do the day-to-day work on your behalf. And that's what I'm here for. And I'm enjoying this. I'm just loving my work, loving connecting with you, and just honored to serve on your behalf. So that was the bylaw revisions we passed. Second thing we did was we elected officers based on that. And if you don't know it, our moderator now is David Lyle. He pastors Mount Tabor Baptist Church. He fulfilled an uncompleted term last 6 months or so. So he'll have a full term, 1 year. He'll rotate off. And our moderator elect, David Cardoza of Calvary Baptist Church in Lilburn. He leads the Hispanic congregation there. So happy to have a Hispanic pastor to serve as our moderator elect. He will automatically in 2022, 2021, 2022, going next October to the next October, he will serve as the next moderator. We'll select a new moderator elect. And on our administrative leadership team, very diverse and got about 15 members on it. And they have terms of 1 or 2 years. So it will rotate, bringing in new leadership, and they'll rotate off for 1 year and then can come back on after they've been off for 1 year. Now, if you have a desire to serve like that, I'd love to hear from you, and it'll be next year, but we need leadership for sure if you enjoy serving on boards. Then we have also our New Church Foundation. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but the New Church Foundation's sole member is the Gwinnett Metro Baptist Network. What it means is legally we have authority to seat their board members, or in an unlikely scenario to unseat board members. But every church can seat a member on that board. I sent you communication. Some of you did that. But in addition, at our annual meeting, we select 8 at-large members, and we've greatly strengthened that board as a result of that meeting. So we're delighted that we have done that. And then we approved our 2021 budget, and we're actually going to increase our budget. And the reason we're able to do that is not because giving is that great. We're struggling like everybody else. The good news is we've only taken in about $4,000 or $5,000 less than we'd taken in at this time last year, which is great given the COVID-19 situation. We've got 13 churches who are giving now that we're not giving a year ago. So we're seeing more engagement. Hopefully we'll see the fruits of that post-COVID-19. We spent just a little bit more than we've taken in, by less than $4,000. We're not concerned about that though, because we have a strong reserve. As a matter of fact, that reserve is so strong, we can increase the budget next year. Looking for about $250,000 in gifts, but then taking about $60,000 from reserves to have a budget of about $314,000 next year. That will not automatically go up in 2022. We'll adapt and adjust based on what we experience next year, even mid-year if we need to adjust, and we'll be good stewards of that budget. But the good news is that's going to allow us to spend about 34% more next year on missions and ministry. And in addition, our New Church Foundation, anticipating a gift from them that we have discussed, we will almost double what we're spending in missions and ministry with supporting pastors, strengthening churches, serving the community, which is missions, and then starting new work, which is planning and replanting. So almost doubling the amount next year we will expend in those areas. So we're greatly pleased that we can do that next year. So to say that, one thing you'll notice, I talk about vision, and our vision is every church thriving and missionally engaged. I just described our priorities. Man, I'm trying to be very hands-on with pastors and leaders, and I hope you see the direction we're going, the missions partnerships, and you want to be a part of it. So I said, thank you for your gifts. If you can give us a boost here towards the end of the year, that'd be great. It would help us. But it's okay. You do what you can do. We appreciate every gift. And but just remember, as you plan your 2021 budget, think about us and know that, man, good things are going on. And I hope you're proud of what's going on. I'd say the bottom line for me is that I want you to want to give. I'm not going to be there begging you for resources. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to share the vision, and I want to be something you want to participate in. Again, knowing not only am I serving you when you have a need, But every day when I'm not even on your mind, I'm out there serving and busting it to help churches and pastors. And you'll see a piece of that in a moment when I share about some of our needs. So there we go. We had bylaw revisions, elected officers, and then we approved our 2021 budget. Now, I just spent about 15 minutes, and I'm going to talk about that, or maybe a little more now, to share with you from my report. And to me, this is a critical part of that meeting. And so thank you for watching this. And I hope you'll hang on to this next portion, because this is where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time, as a matter of fact. And I will refer to my notes over here because I don't want to leave anything out. But anyway, as I shared my director's report, the key component of that was the 5 big things I see that we need to be attentive to if we're going to impact this community. So this is based on my experience after 8 months of serving you. So I hope you'll jot these down and see how you and your church can assist in these areas and work with me and other churches. Here's the number one need I've noticed. You ready? Right now, we have 14 congregations that do not have a location, or they're seeking a location. Some of it is related to COVID. They've been displaced. For example, we've got a church that was meeting in one of our Gwinnett County schools, more than one actually, and the schools are not hosting people right now because of COVID protocols. And we understand that. We're not complaining. Then we've got churches who are meeting in homes, but they've outgrown that and they need space. Others have been meeting in churches, but they're displaced because of churches' protocols, and they have to prioritize their primary congregation. So 14 churches without space, without a place to meet, or looking for a place. 3 of those are not members of our network, but let me tell you, if I can place them, they will become members, and they will in turn add more to the resources we have for missions and ministry right here in Gwinnett County and beyond in the metro area. Now, I see some great models out there, like First Duluth, which has an international congregation, and they just bring everybody together, and that is a great model. There are some others like First Baptist. I think of First Baptist Lilburn. I think of Lawrenceville First Baptist Church, where they have one campus but multiple congregations. First Baptist Lilburn has 12 congregations meeting on that site. I know First Baptist Lawrenceville has 4 or 5. They've got the First Grayson, Colonial Woods, Zion Hill Baptist in Beaufort. They all have maybe 2 or 3 congregations meeting. That is so helpful. Have you considered that, the possibility of hosting another congregation? Now, bear in mind, in most cases, you're talking about 12 or 15 people. But some have 20, 30, even up to 100. And maybe you've got a space that would accommodate them. Ideally, it would be on Sunday morning, but in some cases, these congregations are willing to meet in the afternoon hours. And so this could be a win-win for you in terms of doing missions. These tend to be language congregations, but not just language congregations. Some African-American congregations or English-speaking African-American pastors need space. Got one Anglo church needs space. So there's all kinds of possibilities, whether you want to provide this cross-culturally or the same. You say, I don't want somebody on my campus that's trying to reach the same people. Well, here's the reality. There's so many people in your community. You can both never fill up, your congregations with all the people there are to reach. In the smallest community here in Gwinnett County, as a matter of fact, I mentioned there are 14. That was as of last Thursday. I've talked to 2 more churches since Thursday, honestly. So this is just a huge need. Here's the problem. Imagine a small church of 25 or 30, and there's no wrong size church, by the way, and they're reaching people. We've got a church right now just planted, and they started in the pandemic with drive-in services. They started with 6 or 8 the first Sunday. They're already up to 40. So there are possibilities, out there. So in the midst of this pandemic, God is still working. So if we can pull together, if you imagine again, if this church wants to buy property in Gwinnett County and the county requires them to buy 5 acres, they cannot purchase 5 acres, much less build buildings. Men, listen to me. If we don't pull together and help provide space, we're going to have congregations that will not make it. And we don't want any congregation not to make it. I like to say the church will never die. And you and I know that because Christ is, God in the flesh. He resurrected from the dead. He's creator of the universe. Well, the church will never die, but listen, the congregation can. And we do not want that to happen when we can be providing the resources, the space that they need to give them a boost And the aim is not they would be on your campus for years and years and years, but a year or two, and we would pour to them, help them to grow so they can look at other opportunities. So, Pastor, would you and your church consider hosting another congregation on your campus? Would you call or email me and let's discuss that? This call or email would not obligate you to anything. It's just a discussion to see about possibilities. Some of you just say right now, we will host a congregation. You let me know what is needed. So would you please do that? That is the number one need right now in our network to help our churches to impact Gwinnett and beyond. So that's number one. Number two greatest need I've discovered is this, the need to start new churches. Now, interestingly, in my education background, people would sometimes suggest in a local church, you don't need to start a new class or a new group until you fill up the ones that you've got. For example, let's say you've got 10 Bible study groups or Sunday school classes. Somebody says, we don't need to start an 11th class till we fill up the 10 that we've got. But here's the problem. If you wait on filling up all 10 of the classes you've got, you'll never start another one. You know why? You may have 7, 6, 5 teachers that grow, but there's always that 1 or 2 teachers. And you know what it's like. God bless them. It's us four, no more. They're not going to do much. You got to plow around them. If you wait for them to fill up their room, you'll never start another group. I always say when it comes to your discipleship, you start a new group every year, whether you need to or not. You start a new group. You continually start new groups because the new groups reach people the existing groups never reached. Now, same thing's true with churches. You think, Steve, there's so many churches in Gwinnett County already. Well, listen to this. In Southern Baptist life, there's one church for every 3,000 residents in Georgia. But did you know this? In Gwinnett County, there's only one church for every 7,000 residents. That's Southern Baptist churches. And did you know in the 30044 zip code, which we'll talk about in a few moments, there's only one Southern Baptist church for every 18,600 residents. Yes, we do need to be planting churches. And let me just tell you, if a pastor opened up a campus right next to yours with the same focus, that does not stop you from reaching anybody. The reality is it takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of people. So we need to start all kinds of churches. Interestingly, we've been very internationally minded and there are some international needs, but did you know that 30% of our churches right now minister to 3% of our population? We've got to be more strategic about planning also, not just that we need to start churches, but what kinds of churches do we need to start? And I've done a lot of work on that. I'm working right now on developing resources to help young pastors. Well, we've got a 70-plus-year-old pastor planning a congregation. I'm serious. Dear Korean friend, he's planted churches all over the world. He's forgot more about church planting than I even know. And so I'm delighted. I've got another pastor just started who's almost my age, if not. So it doesn't just take young pastors to plant churches. We want to give them the resources that they need. But starting new churches is the second greatest need that we have. The third biggest need I've kind of begun to talk about is to be more strategic about the church plants. Now, I mentioned the 30% of our churches ministering to 3% of our population because we've been so internationally minded. You know what we've failed to do is to start English-speaking Anglo congregations, English-speaking African-American congregations. Our biggest needs are Hispanic churches, English-speaking African-American, English-speaking Anglo churches. I'll tell you something you probably don't know because you talk about the population in Gwinnett, how the Anglo population is now only 40% of our population, where they used to be a majority. Well, there's still a plurality. They're still the largest. African-American residency is about 26%, Hispanic 20%, Korean 11%, and then 3% for all the rest. But did you know this? Did you know there's more Anglos in Gwinnett County now than there were in 1990? So what's happened is the population has gone up, so it's a lower percentage, but it's still more in the total. But we haven't been starting congregations Anglo. Now, I'm not saying we only need to start that. We need to be starting African-American English speaking. And I'll stop there and say this too. English speaking Anglo pastors need to reach African-Americans. English speaking African-American pastors need to reach Anglos. We need to reach everybody in the community. There's going to be kind of a drawing to culture many times, to style of worship. So it's not a matter of segregating our churches. I would not dare suggest that. Quite the opposite. We need to reach everybody we can reach. Of those who speak English, we need to reach all the English-speaking population. But we need these churches. And right now, surprisingly, we've got a zip code where there's one Anglo English-speaking Southern Baptist church for 50,000 people. Did you know that? 50,000. That's bigger than some counties in Georgia. I've gone through and mapped every zip code in Gwinnett County. And I'm looking at not just how many churches or who is there, but the ratio of churches. To give you an example to my Korean friends, if you're a Korean pastor, you immediately are drawn to Suwanee, Georgia, understandably so, because there's our largest Korean population. So if a pastor wants to plant and he's Korean and speaking Korean, he wants to plant in Suwanee, Georgia. But here's what he may not understand. While there's a large Korean population there, there's also 12 Southern Baptist Korean congregations. You go 2 zip codes over, there's only half the number of Koreans there, but guess what else? There's only 2 Korean churches in that zip code. There's really greater opportunities where there's a smaller population because there's fewer churches reaching out to that community. I've got that information. I'd be glad to share it with you about your zip code to give you the demographics that you need, and also to help you see if you're wanting to, for example, host another church on your property. What would it make most sense to do? A Hispanic congregation, a Korean congregation, English-speaking African-American, Asian Indian, which is probably the next highest need. We've got Vietnamese needs. There are others too. It starts to shrink after that, but they are there based on the zip code. So I've really dug in on that. Be glad to share it with you personally, share about your zip code. That's the next biggest need. So not only placing churches that have been displaced, number 1 need, number 2, planting churches, and number 3, being strategic, not just doing it randomly, very strategic about planning and placing those churches. So pray with me about that. Let's pour some resources there. Perhaps you can't feel like you can plant a church, but maybe you can sponsor a church. I'd love for you to sponsor a church planner, maybe $100 a month or $200 a month directly, or work through us or your church foundation with a gift in addition to what you would give to our network. And just to remind you again too, I didn't say this a while ago, remember this, and thank you for your cooperative program gifts, but remember this, we do not get resources from the cooperative program. When you give to the cooperative program, we don't see any of that. We may see some resources, but we only work and thrive on what you provide directly to us. So bear that in mind with your gifts. So you see what we're doing here. I'm not telling you not to give to other entities, but I'm just telling you right here, you can see your resources at work with what we're doing. Well, here's the 4th biggest need that I've identified. And again, these fit together somewhat, is stronger and clearer alignment with our new church foundation. And again, you might not even know that we've got one. Again, it's a separate entity from our network or our association, but we are, according to their documents, their guiding document, we're the sole member, which means that we have a connection and responsibility to, again, be attentive. We see the board, and then the board manages it. Now, just to be clear, I do not manage that foundation. I am an ad hoc member of their board, so I'm a voting member of the board, but I'm 1 vote. And certainly I have influence. And I'll be honest with you, those of you on that board, new on the board, those listening to this, and I've had this discussion with our president, who's done a great job there, Rolando Ruiz, who I'll share a little bit about. He gave a report, as a matter of fact, and so they really stabilized things from some years back. But right now, we need a clearer direction, a clearer alignment with what we're doing here in the association, so the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, where we are meeting regularly and we're casting that vision and we're receiving the support for our church planning strategies and also placement of churches, these other issues. So I have been working on that with our leaders, our director, Carrie Hudson, our president, Rolando Ruiz. Again, we've grown the board. We've got great leaders there. They haven't met yet. They will be very soon. But anyway, pray for us And for those of you who are serving on that board, we've got work to do. And thank you to Rolando. Thank you for Carrie and others who are part of that. But we do need to strengthen the alignment and work together strongly to accomplish these other things. That is the fourth biggest need, and it is a big one. And finally, here's the fifth biggest need that I have identified in my 8 months here. And it's not that there's only 5 needs, by the way, there are certainly more, but number 5 would be this: assisting struggling churches. And, in our network right now, we have churches that are thriving. Even with COVID-19, we've got churches that are really doing well right now. We've got churches receiving more in gifts than they were receiving a year ago. They're reaching their communities because they've done some good things through COVID, and I'm thankful for those. Hopefully you're one of those thriving churches. We've got churches that are striving. I mean, they're working at it, and COVID has been a hindrance, but it's not lack of effort, not lack of God's movement, but it's always striving and working at it. And I know pastors, you're working hard, and I'm there right with you to help you do the best you can. But then we've got a number of churches that are struggling. And yes, there are some churches that will close their doors. I'm honored we brought some new churches in. I'll talk about in a few moments and the number of churches we got. But right now we've got 4 or 5 churches I really don't know will be here a year from now because between COVID and, but maybe they can. Maybe you and I could pour into them and give them the boost they need to get over this hump. And not only are they not struggling, maybe they're at least striving next year. You know what I'd like to do if you're in a church that's making it okay, maybe you're doing okay, you're doing great. I would love to connect you with a struggling church, just to be a blessing to them. They may need whether it's a financial boost or a leadership boost, or just encouragement or prayer. But I would love really to take all 140 of our churches and take 70 and match with 70. And of those 70, it's not always strong and weak. Sometimes it's strong and strong, but we can all strengthen one another. So I'm going to initiate that, just so you know, making these matches. But if you say, Steve, I want to jump on that right now. I want to help a church across town or across the other side of the county or right outside our county who's struggling. We don't want any church to close its doors or to struggle. Brothers, I'm out there trying to do all I can, but it takes all of us. I'm representing you, but I'm just one piece of the equation. So please, let's help our struggling churches because we don't want to lose any. We have lost some before I got here. We've identified some that just didn't make it. They've disbanded. And there's a couple of others. I think there's about 3 right now. I don't know they even exist, but before we remove anybody from membership, we're double and triple checking to make sure that they're totally out of business, so to speak. And that's why we need to plant new churches. As a matter of fact, we did at this meeting, we brought 3 new churches into full membership. Everlove Baptist Church, a Korean congregation in Cumming, Georgia. International Calvary Church, a Asian Indian congregation, also in Cumming, Georgia. I preached their inaugural service. I was so delighted to do that with Jacob Doss. By the way, Joseph S. Lee is pastor of the Everlove Church, and he's the church planner I mentioned earlier, started with a drive-in service. They're doing really well. Jerry Alcorda, we brought his church on. His church meets New Destiny Church, a Hispanic congregation on the campus of First Baptist Lilburn. They've relocated. Between that and COVID, it's a challenging time. They're moving forward, but it's a challenge for them right now. Had lunch with Jerry today, had a great time. He's a great friend. But we're delighted to have those 3 churches. Also brought on a new church, Ruben Torres, a new pastor, and I would butcher the name of the church, by the way, a Hispanic congregation meeting in his home and in the Lawrenceville area. And so they've come under watch care. I'm anticipating in November bringing on 4 other new churches into membership, potentially. And I'm meeting with pastors who are interested in coming into the network. So we want to grow. Here's where we're at right now. We've got 141 churches who are members or under watch care. And so I think there was 142 when I started 8 months ago. So we've lost some, we've gained some, but we want to continue to expand as another way to minister together. So I want to give you that update also. So let's work together to help those struggling churches. Well, let me wrap this up with a couple of other things I want you to know about. Those were the 5 big takeaways. Did you know we're developing missions partnerships where you can be involved, no matter what size your church, no matter what your budget? And by the way, you don't need to stop anything that you're doing with missions, but if you don't have something going on locally, we're focused on the 30044 zip code. one of the most unchurched zip codes in all of Northeast Georgia. There's only 5 churches, only 5 Southern Baptist churches in that zip code. That's a 1 to 18,600 ratio, as I'd mentioned earlier. And so we've begun a process of strengthening those churches and developing partnerships. Maybe you want to pour into them. We need to plant churches in that zip code also. The New Church Foundation has some opportunities they're working on also for that zip code. So we're going to pour energy. So you don't have to travel, get on a plane. Hope you'll go on our website, gwinnettmetro.net, and check out the webinars we've got on these missions partnerships. So locally, 30044. Nationally with New England, these are church-to-church partnerships. Imagine me connecting you with a church in one of our states in New England, and we connect you with a church, and you just pray for one another. There may be an occasion where you go up and you discover what their needs are, and then you look how your church could assist. Maybe you send a team up there in the summer. Maybe you send a family every month to minister. You design that, but we match you up with a church. It could be a cross-cultural match, a Korean church with a Hispanic church, a Korean church with an Anglo church, or a Hispanic church with a Hispanic church. That's up to you. Those opportunities are available. We're facilitating those. And then we're about to facilitate opportunities in the country of Peru. So if you want to do an international missions partnership, church to church, we're working on those. We've posted again on our website webinars about all of those. We're excited, and we'll continue to develop those. So that's part of what we've been doing in these last few months and moving forward. Looking ahead here, just a couple of announcements kind of. One is, I hope you've heard about this. I posted it on Facebook today, a 15-minute video webinar. We've got one of America's leading pastors coming to spend 5 sessions in 5 months with you, our pastors, to pour into you. Outreach Magazine has listed this church 2 years running, I believe, as one of America's, I think, top 50 fastest growing congregations. It's in Peavine Baptist Church in Rock Springs, Georgia. His name is Joel Sutherland. He and I have worked together in the past. He is one of the most creative, outstanding pastors. He's going to come in January, February, March, April, May. We're going to have an afternoon group and an evening group. We're calling these accelerate groups, accelerate your leadership. But here's the kicker. Only 12 pastors per group. That's 24 total. Get your name on the list. Watch that video to learn more. This is just the announcement. Go to our website, go to Facebook, check out a 15-minute video. You can meet Joel, learn more about what's going on. There's a small cost, $50. You'll get refunded if you attend all 5 sessions. Plus, if you are a bivocational pastor or a new church planner, I have a pastor who anonymously, on behalf of his church, has offered 5 scholarships. One of them has been taken, so there's 4 available. Please inquire if you have any interest in that. So learn more by going to the website. Last thing, men or ladies, if you're watching this, mark down December the 3rd. Would you come by our office between noon and 6:30 for Christmas greetings? You don't need to bring anything. You can bring your staff if you'd like, if you have a staff. Bring your family if you'd like. Just come by, and we'll be here. If the weather's nice, we'll set up outside also. For social distancing, I'll send you a list. We're trying to encourage Lawrenceville residents to come during a window and Grayson residents during a window, but you're not obligated. That's just to keep us spread out throughout the day from noon until 6:30 p.m. And you can come by for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour. So it's just a drop by. Arrive when you want and leave when you want. We'll have refreshments. You and I will exchange Christmas greetings. I've interacted with 137 of our 141 pastors directly already, but some of you not face-to-face. If I haven't met you face-to-face, please come by and let us meet one another. That's my aim, to meet everybody personally, and I will. Again, COVID has hindered that. You get the picture here, man, a lot going on. That doesn't even touch the administrative framework that I've worked on, the rebranding, the website, the social media presence, just the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month consultations. I'm doing the training where we try to be, I say, high in opportunity, but low in obligation, continually providing things for you. And by the way, if you've got ideas, a pastor you want to hear from, a topic you want to know about, a roundtable you want to have. Recently, we did a focus with a prayer emphasis on November the 18th, where many churches participated praying for our election. That was not my idea. That was a pastor, but I partnered with him. He initiated it, and we worked together. So if you've got an idea, I'd be glad to work with you on the possibility. I could go on and on and on because I love what I do. I love you, and I'm excited about the Gwinnett Metro Baptist Network. I'll leave it there. There's a summary of our annual meeting. there's a summary of the 5 biggest needs that I see as we move forward to reach this community, Gwinnett County and beyond. And there's a couple of quick announcements. Well, time's up. Love you guys. And please call me, email me if I can help you in any way. Steve@gmba.org. God bless you. Have a great, great day.